In just 52 seconds, $47 million in unexplained transfers. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett didn't raise her voice. She pulled out a single manila folder, cameras zoomed closer. The Senate chamber fell into absolute silence. What did she reveal that made two of Trump's most trusted nominees crumble before America's eyes? At exactly 2:14 p.m. on January 28, 2025, Representative Jasmine Crockett entered the Senate Judiciary Committee hearing room like a prosecutor ready for battle. The folder in her hands would shake to cabinet confirmation. Kash Patel sat at the witness table, FBI Director nominee badge gleaming under harsh lights. Beside him, Pam Bondi adjusted her navy suit jacket. Both had weathered hours of questioning about their qualifications and loyalty to justice. Mr. Patel, Ms. Bondi, Crockett began, her Texas accent cutting through the tension like a blade. I want to discuss your commitment to transparency in investigating crimes involving powerful individuals. Patel's hands remained steady on the mahogany table. Congresswoman, I've dedicated my career to exposing corruption wherever it exists, regardless of political affiliation. Bondi nodded in agreement. The Department of Justice, under my leadership, would pursue justice blindly, without favor or prejudice. Crockett opened the manila folder. The sound of paper rustling echoed through the chamber's speakers. Reporters leaned forward. C-SPAN cameras adjusted their focus. I have here, she said slowly, a list of 207 names, individuals who appear in Jeffrey Epstein's flight logs, contact lists, and financial records that were sealed pending further investigation. The room temperature seemed to drop. Senator Chuck Grassley's eyebrows raised. Even the court reporters paused their typing. Now, Mr. Patel, Crockett continued, her voice growing stronger, this list was compiled by FBI investigators in 2019. Were you aware of its existence during your time in the Trump administration? Patel's left eye twitched almost imperceptibly. Congresswoman, I cannot comment on ongoing investigations or classified materials without proper. It's no longer classified, Crockett interrupted, holding up a declassification stamp dated January 15, 2025. So I'll ask again, were you aware? The silence stretched for exactly 12 seconds. In those 12 seconds, Twitter began exploding with Epstein list hashtags. Fox News anchors shuffled their papers nervously. CNN broke into their regular programming. I may have been briefed on various investigative matters, Patel finally responded, his voice slightly strained. Crockett turned to Bondi. Ms. Bondi, as Florida Attorney General, did you ever receive requests to investigate any individuals who might appear on this list? Bondi's face remained composed, but her knuckles whitened as she gripped her portfolio. I would need to review my records to provide an accurate. Let me help refresh your memory, Crockett said, pulling out a second document. March 2011, your office received a formal complaint about suspicious activities at a Palm Beach property owned by Jeffrey Epstein. The complainant alleged that powerful political figures were involved. Gasps rippled through the gallery. Senator Ted Cruz leaned into his microphone. Point of order. No point of order necessary, Senator, Crockett replied calmly. These are public records, obtained through FOIA requests, that were fulfilled just last week. She continued reading from the document. The complaint specifically mentioned concerns about individuals who held or would hold federal federals. Ms. Bondi, your office's response was to file the complaint without investigation. Can you explain why? Bondi's face drained of color. Her press aide, seated behind her, frantically typed on his phone. The Florida Attorney General's office processes thousands of complaints without additional evidence or jurisdiction. But there was additional evidence, Crockett interjected, producing a third document. Financial records showing $2.3 million in donations to various political action committees, donations that coincidentally occurred within weeks of that complaint being filed away. The chamber erupted. Chairman Dick Durbin gavelled for order. In the gallery, reporters frantically captured the shock. Patel shifted uncomfortably. "Congresswoman, I object to these implications." "I'm stating facts," Crockett's voice rose. "You were briefed on this list in 20. You recommended certain investigations be deprioritized. Some involved names on this very list." She held up the folder containing the 207 names. "Fact, both of you had opportunities pursue justice for victims of one of the most notorious criminal conspiracies in modern American history. And fact, both of you chose political expediency over justice." Bondi attempted to regain composure. "Congresswoman, I resent the implication that I would..." "The American people don't care about your resentment, Miss Bondi. They care about justice." Crockett's words hit like hammer blows. "They care about whether their next attorney general pursued a $2.3 million political donation or a child trafficking investigation." Senator Josh Hawley interrupted. "Congresswoman, do you have evidence of direct wrongdoing, or are you engaging in character assassination?" Crockett smiled for the first time during the hearing. "Senator, I have bank records. I have communication logs. I have testimony from FBI agents who were told to stand down from certain investigations." "Would you like me to continue?" The 52 seconds that followed would be analyzed by political commentators for years to come. In those 52 seconds, Patel's confidence crumbled. His hands began trembling slightly as he reached for his water glass. Bondi's press aide handed her a note, which she crumpled immediately after reading. "Mr. Patel," Crockett said, her voice now laser-focused, "on November 18, 2020, you sent an email to FBI Deputy Director Paul Abbate. In that email you wrote, and I quote, 'Certain high-profile investigations should be reviewed for their potential impact on national unity and political stability.' Was the Epstein-related investigation one of those high-profile cases?" Patel's mouth opened, then closed. For a man who had built his career on rapid-fire responses and legal precision, the silence was deafening. That email was taken out of context." "The context, Mr. Patel, is that you were asking the FBI to consider politics before justice. The context is that names on this list include individuals who held significant political power. The context is that you prioritized protecting powerful people over protecting their victims." Bondi attempted to redirect. "Congresswoman, these allegations are supported by documentation," Crockett finished. "Miss Bondi, would you like to explain why your office in Florida never followed up on credible allegations against individuals who are now confirmed to be on Jeffrey Epstein's contact list?" The hearing room had become a pressure cooker. Senator Sheldon Whitehouse was furiously taking notes. Senator John Cornyn looked like he wanted to be anywhere else in the world. The gallery buzzed with whispered conversations and frantic phone calls. Crockett placed the folder flat on the table before her. "Members of this committee, we are being asked to confirm 2 individuals to the highest law enforcement positions in our country. Positions that require not just competence, but moral clarity. Positions that demand justice be pursued regardless of political cost." She looked directly at Patel, then at Bondi. "I submit to you that both nominees have demonstrated that when faced with the choice between protecting powerful people and protecting victims, they chose power." The silence that followed was broken only by the hum of C-SPAN cameras and the scratching of pens on reporter notebooks. In that moment, the political landscape shifted. 2 confirmations that seemed certain hours earlier now hung in the balance. Senator Durbin called for a recess. As the committee members filed out, Crockett remained seated, the folder still in front of her. She had just wielded 207 names, like a sword, and the wounds were visible on faces across the hearing room. When the committee reconvened, Patel returned with visible sweat, his shirt showing damp spots. Bondi's hands trembled as she adjusted her microphone. Senator Lindsey Graham attempted damage control. Congresswoman, while these allegations are serious, Senator Graham, are you suggesting child trafficking should be considered through political convenience? The question silenced him. I need to address these accusations directly, Patel said, his voice hoarse from the stress. Congresswoman, the email you referenced was part of a broader discussion about resource allocation during a transition period. Mr. Patel, Crockett said, opening yet another section of her folder. Let me read you another email. This one from December 3rd, 2020. You wrote to then Attorney General William Barr, the Epstein matter has too many political ramifications to pursue aggressively during transition. Recommend minimal staffing and delayed timeline. Does that sound like someone committed to justice regardless of politics? Patel's jaw clenched so tightly that veins became visible in his neck. That email was about strategic timing. Strategic timing for whom, Mr. Patel? For the victims who are waiting for justice? Or for the powerful people whose names appear on this list? Bondi attempted to interject. Congresswoman, I think we need to distinguish between… Miss Bondi, your time to distinguish passed years ago, Crockett shot back. When that Palm Beach complaint landed on your desk in 2011, you had a choice. Investigate credible allegations against powerful people or accept political donations, and look the other way. The evidence shows which path you chose. The gallery was now completely silent, except for the mechanical whir of cameras and the frantic typing of reporters filing real-time updates. Epstein list was trending #1 worldwide. Cable news networks had canceled regular programming to provide continuous coverage. Senator Amy Klobuchar leaned into her microphone. Ms. Crockett, can you provide the committee with any specific names from this list that relate to these allegations? Crockett's eyes sparkled with the confidence of someone holding trump cards. Senator, I can do better than that. She reached into her folder and produced a stack of photographs. These are surveillance photos from FBI files, photos that show several individuals from the list at various Epstein properties between two. She held up the first photo. Gasps echoed through the chamber. While the faces were partially redacted for the public hearing, the body language of committee members suggested they recognized the individuals. Mr. Patel, as FBI Director Designate, would you commit to reopening investigations into every name on this list, regardless of their current position or political affiliation? Patel stared at the photos for nearly 20 seconds. His political career, his reputation, his future, everything hung on his next words. Congresswoman, I would need to review the evidence and consult with career prosecutors about the viability. That's a no, Crockett stated flatly. Miss Bondi, same question. Would you commit to pursuing justice for every victim, regardless of how powerful their abusers might be? Bondi's response was barely audible. The Department of Justice would follow the evidence wherever it leads, within the bounds of prosecutorial discretion. Another no, Crockett concluded. Members of this committee, we have just witnessed two nominees for the highest law enforcement positions in America refuse to commit to investigating child trafficking because the perpetrators might be politically connected. The weight of that statement settled over the room like a heavy blanket. Senator Chuck Grassley, a Republican who had been largely supportive of both nominees, shook his head slowly. Senator Dick Durbin made notes that looked more like a prosecutor's case outline than a politician's talking points. Crockett stood up from her chair, the folder still in her hands. This list represents more than names. It represents victims who deserve justice. It represents a system that has failed them for over a decade. and it represents a choice for this committee. She walked slowly around the witness table, her heels clicking against the marble floor. Patel and Bondi both avoided eye contact. Their earlier confidence completely evaporated. The choice is simple, she continued. Confirm two individuals who have already proven they will protect political allies over victims, or demand better for the American people. As she returned to her seat, Crockett placed the folder on the table with deliberate finality. I yield my remaining time, Mr. Chairman. I believe the American people have heard enough. Later that evening, as news networks replayed the 52-second collapse over and over, one question dominated social media. What else was in that folder? By midnight, 3 Republican senators had publicly announced they would vote against both confirmations. By morning, the White House was reportedly searching for replacement nominees. Sometimes the most powerful weapon in Washington isn't a subpoena or a press conference. It's the truth, carefully documented and revealed at precisely the right moment. The American people deserve to know whether their top law enforcement officials would pursue justice or protect political allies. In 52 seconds, they got their answer. What happens when those seeking the highest law enforcement positions in America are confronted with their own failures to enforce the law? If justice can't survive politics, was it ever really justice at all?